Just like badly implemented time travel, the multiverse is poisoned for narrative cohesion, and it destroys any sense of permanence and stakes for future films in the MCU. Seeing how this new era on Marvel is coined as the multiversal saga, I think it's time to jump ship after the newest Phase 5 introduction movie, Cassie and Janet Quantumania. Maybe it's a stretch, but I truly believe this is one of the, if not the absolute worst MCU film I have ever seen. The sheer laziness of its screenplay and the Shark Boy and Lava Girl visual effects make it seem more like an SNL parody of a Marvel movie than a real one. The MCU is creatively bankrupt and it shows. This is now the second MCU film where we have to deal with a shitty voiceover montage introduction, except this time it looks like a heartburn commercial.
Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems, kidney failure, and bone problems, which may lead to fractures. Rare life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems.
When it comes to the corporate world, nothing can be emotional. Everything has to be a joke. These scenes are crafted in a way to get a cheap dopamine hit out of you every 30 seconds, because that's what our TikTok short and jewel-hitting attention span viewers enjoy nowadays. Spending 5 minutes explaining how Cassie is now the third teenage girl who is capable of building some Tony Stark level machinery in a basement could potentially bore our viewers, so it can't be in the film. Taking the time to develop a more bulletproof reason as to why our main characters end up in the quantum realm would require brain power and extra time put into the script. That can't happen because our instant gratification customers would have to wait longer between products. In the current market landscape, we seem to have forgotten that if you take the time to build on something, the people will reward you for it, like those 4 years well spent leading up to this iconic moment in the first Avengers film, or the slow burn 7-year gradual buildup of Thanos. Now with the takeover of streaming, there's a quantity over quality approach where industry giants base a film's success on how many people can click their movie. I get painfully reminded each year that this franchise keeps putting their products on a conveyor belt. You would be expected to care about conflict not because it's set up well in the story, but simply because you recognize these story arcs from other things, usually earlier and better pieces of media. Finding a new good MCU film is like hitting the slot machine after the 20th pull of a lever. The new post-endgame screenplay writing strategy is to rush through plot points that will otherwise be stupid if you took the time to think about it. Don't question how Janet, who spent 30% of her life in the quantum realm, wouldn't say a damn thing about what she saw down there, even if it involved a person capable of destroying multiverses. And quotes on the word capable. There was also a post-credits scene in a previous movie where Janet is voluntarily sending Scott Lang into the quantum realm. You would think she would have spazzed out back then like she did in this film, considering there is no way my boy Kang wasn't conquering them cheeks. But you know the phrase from classic Disney consumers. It's just a movie, bro. It's not that serious. Normally I wouldn't mind the quips, the forspoken dialogue, the left-leaning politics that Disney shoehorns with as much care as a drunk Johnny from Cobra Kai. I am capable of enjoying movies that are stupid. I like seeing space wizards with light-up can openers that can slice through anything except plot armor. I am looking forward to a movie that comes out next week where a bear eats a shitload of cocaine and goes on a killing spree. Antman Quantumania is not a stupid movie. It's a movie that assumes I am stupid. Our hero's adventure into the quantum realm is presented in listless fashion and underlit green screen CGI vomit. As soon as our characters get there, we learn very quickly that Janet was a social butterfly and has befriended the Star Wars at home looking characters that lived there in the past. There are absolutely zero stakes, of course, as the rebels that find Pym, Hope, and Janet luckily remember Janet, and they also remember that they're in an MCU film and we can't have any tension, only funnies. Our main character Cassie is left with Antman, and the two are stuck behind a green screen with AI generated art being displayed and psychedelic album cover like creatures around them. Long story short, the two get captured by the Pixar lamp and his Goonies. They get brought back to their tribe and are asked to drink some sort of goo. I was actually pretty entertained by this scene. It was unique and a little bit scary, as I was not expecting to see Paul Rudd in what looks like a satanic ritual of some sorts. But of course, I forgot we are in an MCU film, and the goo was just some plot device to hear more quips from the Star Wars characters. Apart from me not finding most of these jokes funny, which comedy is subjective, whatever. But what strikes me as annoying is that right after the funnies, they throw in some stupid melodrama and expect me to care about these characters that the film itself doesn't even take seriously. We meet a roided up, diverse Gymshark athlete, who I have no idea who her name is, but she starts speaking about how her tribe has been dealing with essentially imperialism, wars, and other stuff that ChatGPT would generate if you asked it to write an MCU film. Cassie, who the film established early on is a social activist who partakes in peaceful protests, starts to rag on Ant-Man once again because he wants wants to get home, find his family, and not get involved with whatever is going on here. But before Cassie can girl boss Ant-Man some more, the tribe is now under attack, and the Gymshark athlete says in full seriousness, "This is your fault we are under attack. You led them to us." Even though they were the ones who kidnapped them and forced him to drink the goo. Like, what the heck, dude? Who wrote this film, man? Whatever. I have an open mind. I can deal with the nonsensical writing. Just give me some cool action sequences.
You wish.
The indigenous Star Wars at home rebel fighters are getting their booties conquered, missiles are flying, explosions are going on, people are dying. This is supposed to be a tense scene, but our overlords at the funny decides to inject its funnies again, even though we already had some funnies not too long ago. Ant-Man is like, "Cassie, you gotta jump up and hit people correctly. Let me show you how to do it." So he does it, and Cassie is like, "You're too small, I couldn't see anything." So Paul Rudd does it again, and it's like this random fun scene in the middle of an imperialist conquest, where people are screaming and dying and hiding their children and shit. I forgot to mention that Cassie has an Ant-Man suit now, so that's like 5 people with the same superpower in this family. If I had a penny for every time a helmet opened and closed in this damn movie, I would have more money than this film's budget. None of the action is particularly engaging. I'm not saying I want these Ant-Man movies to be The Godfather or something, but Quantumania's predecessors understood the simple pleasures of a shrinking and growing superhero in relatable spaces, recontextualizing the scale of everyday objects we're familiar with. It's why we enjoyed scenes like Scott fighting Yellow Jacket on a Thomas the Tank Engine train track, Scott having to get out what seems like a tsunami caused by your typical home bathtub, and Ant-Man running alongside kitchen knives and throwing around a shrunken building. Ant-Man is a character that purely relies on his environment, and putting Scott in a place with indecipherable alien CGI and tons of open space just isn't interesting. But we all came here to see Kang. Our overlord Kevin Feige said he would be the next Thanos level threat, and that this is an unskippable Marvel film because it will set up the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. Listen, every reviewer said the same thing, that this is another case of a good villain, bad movie. And I disagree. I think that this is a case of a great and talented actor, Jonathan Mayer, playing a bad villain in a bad movie. While Cassie is dealing with a war, we go back to Janet, where this movie is doing the fatal flaw of telling us and not showing us about Kang. And what I'm referring to is Bill Murray's scene, because I generally believe this is one of the worst written scenes in cinematic history. Not only is this Bill Murray's worst performance in his entire career, but in the few minutes of screen time he is in this film, he managed to not only make awkward sex jokes hinted at infidelity, but he also plays the most pointless and unneeded character I have ever seen. I kid you not, this film spends like 20 minutes of Bill Murray, Janet, Pym, and Hope sitting down at a table somewhere that looks like the Star Wars cantina, spitting out dialogue which looks like a toddler wrote for freaking Homer. "He is coming." Who is he talking about? Oh, you didn't tell him about him? Who are you running away from? Why are you scared of him? I heard a lot about you guys, but I'm surprised you didn't talk about him. Enough! Just take me to him. I bet you didn't tell them about all the deaths you and him caused. Are you banging my wife? There is no reason for Janet to be so reluctant to give the family any information that could help them, especially with Cassie being in danger. This scene was like an hour into the movie, after they've been in the quantum realm for a long ass time. We, the audience, obviously know they are talking about Kang, because he was plastered on the marketing more than the Wasp. They've been avoiding the Kang name drop since Loki with the whole "he who shall not be named," and the worst part is the family keeps letting her get away with the "I don't want to talk about it, we don't have much time, I'll explain later" lines. Like, girl, you have first-hand knowledge of the type of threat he is, but I guess Kang conquered those cheeks so well that it's a bit of a touchy subject to talk about. And how did these two lovebirds meet, you may ask? Well, they coincidentally crash-landed in the same spot together in the quantum realm. Kang is a part of the Council of Kangs, and the Kang in this film was exiled by the other Kangs. He was a bit too evil and did too much conquering. The movie keeps stating he is one of the most powerful Kangs, so instead of the other Kangs just straight up killing him, they were nice enough to banish him with his battle-ready technological suit and weapons, and the infamous time chair in which he can travel the multiverse in, but as a safety precaution, they took out an important component of the chair so he can't use it. What the f? Kang in the comics is supposed to be this genius from the 31st century, who has significantly more advanced technology than our heroes. You see the armor that he wears in this film? Well, quoting the source material directly, he made it within hours and mastered a score of miraculous devices inspired by Dr. Doom. The suit is so powerful that it can can deflect magic, Thor's hammer, and even take a blast from Quicksilver's most powerful attack. Hey you! The MCU isn't the comics, you can't compare the two, stop overthinking things so much. Okay, that's a fair argument, you win. Janet and Kang start to rebuild the power core missing from his time chair. Who would have seen that coming, you may ask? Definitely not the Council of Kangs, who their whole gimmick is that they could see the events written before they happen. Anyways, apparently the power core gets rebuilt. Surprise, surprise. As the two lovebirds were ready to leave the kaleidoscope once and for all, Janet touches the power core even though it wasn't in the time chair, and Janet gets a glimpse of who Kang the Conqueror really is, because if you don't know, his time chair is Neuralinked, which in fact you wouldn't know if you were just watching this film without prior comic book source material knowledge, because it wasn't explained at all. Like all divorces go in life, Janet runs away and steals half of Kang's personal assets, which include the power core MacGuffin thing, and instead of Kang just straight up obliterating those cheeks using his OP force field powers, which seem to show up only when the plot needs it to, Janet uses the Pym particle thingies on the power core and makes it huge, not allowing Kang to use it in his time chair. I can't even begin to think about how stupid this is. You're telling me Kang the Conqueror, the man who quote unquote have destroyed several universes, killed so many Avengers that he lost track of who, is crowned as one of the greatest minds in Marvel comic history, cannot simply just build another power core. There was no indication that the power core required a certain material that was finite. If Riri Williams can make an Iron Man style suit in her garage and a vibranium detector used by the CIA using, and I quote from the film, scraps of junk, what is stopping our conqueror from conquering? I mean, the most absolute hilarious thing to me is that instead of just finding a workaround like building a bigger time chair for the bigger power core, I don't know, I'm not a conqueror, Kang decides to just go ham and take over the quantum realm and build an empire where his jail used to be. Like, man's is capable of building all this shit I'm showing you right here in the trailer footage, which include advanced cities, armies, these random things, and he can't rebuild the power core for some magical reason. He's been waiting for Scott Lang specifically for God knows how long so he can force him to shrink into the power core and return it to normal size. What the heck? To make matters worse, Kang even creates his own little personal war machine thing called MODOK, who is later revealed to be Darren, a person from the first Ant-Man movie with extensive knowledge on those Pym particle things that Kang needs so much. I just want to state that there is no hate towards Jonathan Mayer. In fact, Jonathan Mayer is so good at lifting this poor source material that he is given that he almost convinces you that this is anything more than a $200 million time-wasting, world-building mess where Disney is desperately trying to keep people on the hook just long enough to get to the next movie over and over and over again. Nothing evolves, nothing progresses. These aren't characters, just soulless vessels you can project your own self in. If this is Marvel's way of one-upping Thanos in the big bad department, I don't think it was a good idea to kill Kang 2 times in both of his appearances, one being in a TV episode and the other being killed by a comic relief character. And the whole army of Kang shenanigans is just so stupid. Do you know what the flaw is of making a villain whose strength is in his numbers? They become henchmen. Fighting Infinite Kang is like fighting the same army of Ultron bots. No one cares. But outside of a few unconvincing late inning battle sequences, there really doesn't seem to be much to Kang. I mean, he can levitate people and shoot lasers out of his hands, but he just sounds like Tony Stark if he was a Jedi. They do a montage of Kang straight up disintegrating people, and that was generally cool, but when he does it on Ant-Man, it basically tickles him and knocks him into a wall. Like, at least try to hide the plot armor. On top of that, you show Kang getting bodied by communist ants and a live action Funko Pop who got defeated by a teenage girl calling him a dick. The film then decides to do a very pointless emotional scene for MODOK, even though he probably killed thousands of quantum people. What is with Disney trying to make the irredeemable redeemable? Also, does anyone have the official count for the number of times a character was forcibly walked down a hallway by 2 guards and escaped with a punch and kick combo during a Disney production? If there's one singular thing I enjoyed in this film, it was seeing the final fist fight between Kang and Scott, and that is only because it reminded me that Jonathan Mayers is gonna kill his performance in Creed 3, and that is my sole compliment of this train wreck called a movie. This film is also one of the worst MCU looking projects to date, not only in its terrible CGI and green screen usage that my local weatherman can create a more immersive experience out of, but it just feels passionless. The film spends an hour trying to be Avatar 2 The Way of the Water when it comes to the world building, except without the revolutionary filmmaking technique spearheaded by a passionate director. There is no visual invention, and my mind began to drift thinking about how much cooler these giant Ant-Man scenes would look if they used some sort of Toku style miniature set or something creative. There's no interesting camera work, and if you told me the actors were filmed in a set before the filmmakers decided what they were looking at or interacting with, I would believe you. These films don't have to be highbrow dramas or anything, but at least they need to feel tactile. I have been feeling really frustrated with the MCU as of late, and having to watch one of my favorite franchises turn into a content churning conveyor belt has been one of the most difficult things to see. James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 looks like the last breath of fresh air in the MCU. I don't think I can handle another Black Widow, another Eternal, another Thor Love and Thunder, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Falcon the Winter Soldier, and last but not least, Antman Quantumania. But hey, at least we got the Miss Marvels coming. Woo! In the wise words of Hawkeye.
Don't give me hope.